You know, when you're doing your shopping at this particular store here in the very heart of London in Regent Street, it is, of course, a spectacular street, famous for so many big brands, all of that sort of stuff. Dilapidated now, of course, in 2024, with many of the major brands, well, running away simply of their high rents and rates and all that sort of stuff. It's a shame, isn't it, when you see these once fabulous buildings that have now been eradicated, really, all due to mismanagement and, well, the latest sort of situation we're all under. You get the picture. But this particular building, the Plaza, which is now home to a British supermarket, Tesco Metro, well, it's seen some spectacular things, including visits from royalty, and was originally made from American money, no less. And on top of all that, it was host to the very final big premiere of an American singing legend, the late and brilliant Judy Garland. Let me explain. Now, with its beautiful classical frontage, this was the epicenter, if you like, when it first opened in the early 20s. And this was one of the very big cinemas put together by Paramount. Now, you've got to remember, I kind of understand this sort of thing. If you think about it, there you are, you've got all these big brands like famous Lasky Studios, Charlie Chaplin, Mary Pickford. They're all making, if you like, you know, the product. And then everybody else is creaming the profit. So once you've made the movie, that's where it stops. People like Gaumont British, Pinewood, stuff like that, Rank eventually decided they too wanted a slice of the cinema-going action. But as ever, it was the American market that grabbed it first. And Paramount was one of the very first brands to come over here and put their money into these very palatial palaces of delight, domes of delight as they were famously called. When this theatre first opened, and it was deemed to be a theatre because it could house many big productions as well as the latest talkies, well, the idea really was to make sure that you left absolutely enthralled. And you did. When you see inside, of course, what it was a home from home if you dreamt about having money. Not only that, the famous John Tiller girls performed between movies and shows. Yes, it was that spectacular. But it's a bit like everything, isn't it? When you think about it, everything has a time. And it was competing at that point also at points with the famous London Palladium that also moved over to movies. You see, movies had literally eclipsed vaudeville, variety, music hall, whatever you want to call it. This really was the newfangled thing. We're all going to see that. Who cared about, seeing live performances? They were the darlings of the Odeons, the gods of the Gaumonts, that sort of stuff. Now, this particular Plaza Cinema, I remember it when I first came to London because at this point it was kind of very run down and disused. And I was working in a hotel at the time where there was a fire literally engulfing it, and that was it. Suddenly, once the fire took hold, then you knew this cinema wasn't coming back, which was a terrible shame. But it did hold some incredible memories, including visits from royalty. In 1957, His Royal Highness, the Duke of Edinburgh, Prince Philip, attended a royal premiere of a later chum of mine, the brilliant actor Richard Todd, who I detailed before I was lucky enough to meet while appearing in a variety show at the Theatre Royal in Hanley. Oh yes, it's amazing how time moves on everything, isn't it, But he was a wonderful chappie, but he'd literally been there, done it all, and of course starred in the Dam Busters. Now, if you're a Judy Garland fan, this will really have a lot of poignancy for you because it was at this cinema that Judy had a very final big premiere, a movie that she'd made under the direction of Ronald Neames, and it was called I Could Go On Singing. Now, it starred Dirk Bogarde alongside her, alongside also the likes of an uncredited cameo from her daughter, the lovely Lorna Luft, who I know very well. And let's not forget a former international soap star, well, in England anyway, and Doctor Who alumni. That's right, Fraser Hines playing a schoolboy. But you see, Judy wasn't keen on appearing in this particular movie because it really did resemble her life too much. She played a singer, Jenny Bowen, and it was all about another comeback, the Palladium, the problems that she had, you know, the sort of thing. You can understand why she thought, well, I'm not too keen on this, but they ploughed ahead. Dirk Bogarde convinced her, and she thought, well, this might be a hit. She needed a hit. Her managers told her she needed a hit, and this was the first time that Judy had sung on film since A Star Is Born some 14 years earlier. So you can understand how this worked, right? But sadly, they tricked Judy Garland at the 11th hour because she wasn't very keen on coming here to the Plaza Cinema in the heart of London. But why? Well, the true story goes is that Judy was very keen, you know, eventually to turn up because Dirk Bogarde had persuaded her, and he said, look, you know, we're on a percentage deal with this movie, we could make some money, all of that sort of stuff. Dirk, who I also met in later life, was very persuasive indeed, and she truly did like him. But there was a bigger story attached. You see, Judy had been told that, in fact, you know, a member of royalty would be attending, so it would be bad if she didn't show. Even though it wasn't a royal performance, she believed that the late and one-time good friend, of course, Princess Margaret, was going to be in attendance. This wasn't true, but they said anything to Judy to make her to attend. They needed the publicity, they needed to get the money back, and they felt they'd spent their money on Judy Garland and they were going to get their money's worth. It seems a story of Judy, doesn't it? Every single time, you know, whatever happens, she seems to be the loser, which is a sad state of affairs. It's a little bit like the Plaza. It ploughed on for many years until, like many cinemas, it split into two and all of that sort of stuff, and they tried to do all sorts of different things. What remains now is what I'm showing you on screen, and you can still see the original side exits of the cinema and what was the stage door. Many big things happened at the Plaza, but not a lot of people know that as you're scanning your goodies on your own, wrestling with that digital till, you are literally sat where possibly the Duke of Edinburgh enjoyed many a film, apparently turned up here quite privately also. And not forgetting, of course, the very final premiere of the brilliant American superstar that was Judy Garland. So next time you're in London and you fancy having a look around what was a beautiful cinema, which is now a shell of its former self, the Plaza might be a visit for you. Neil Sean in the very heart of London.